What's up, everybody? Big Cop Diesel coming at you, and I wanted to do a video about the current situation in Ukraine. And you might be asking yourself, well, why is this dude making this video about this topic on this channel? The reason being is this is the only channel that I'm putting any work into. I have another one, but I'm kind of combining them. Excuse me. But the other bigger reason is that although this may seem far away, this is a security issue that definitely will reach us here at home, and I'll explain why. First of all, without going into a whole bunch of detail on what all is going on, some of you watching this may be thinking to yourself, okay, I know about Ukraine, I know about Russia, I know there's a war, but I really don't know what the details are. And maybe you don't care, and that's okay too. However, my concern is that because of the current state of affairs in the White House, which is what's gotten us, meaning the world, into this situation, my concern is that it's going to have lasting effects here. And first and foremost, I'm just going to give you a brief thumbnail of my view. Number one, Russia is not the boogeyman that they've been made out to be. You can listen to the news, you can listen to the headline and say, you know, Putin's a dictator, he wants to take over Europe, he wants to invade Poland and all that. But if you actually go and listen to all of Putin's public statements that he has made to his country and to other world leaders, he's never said anything of that at all. All he cares about is not having NATO on his doorstep. And just to put it clear and easy and then move on, how would we feel if China, or Russia for that matter, set up troops and bases in Mexico or Canada? We wouldn't like that very much. So just take that same thought and switch out the players. You got Russia and you got NATO putting troops and equipment, some of which are American troops and equipment, on Russia's back door in Ukraine. So that's the broad stroke of what's going on over there. Now, the reason why it's a security issue for us is that if there is a misstep and there is some type of a nuclear exchange, number one, none of us will be here to talk about it. We will not survive a nuclear exchange. Now, if we don't die initially, we're most certainly going to die later, and it's going to be a long, painful death if you have to die from radiation poisoning. Now, being that we live in Metro Detroit, I can guarantee you that we are on the target package. Promise you. You might be saying, well, hey, Aaron, why is that? What makes you so sure of that? Car plants, and we have a refinery downriver. The reason why car plants would be hit is because in a time of war, car plants can be converted to make military equipment. If you don't believe me, just take a look at the Sherman tank from World War II. It was nicknamed the Destroyer from Detroit because they were built here. So rest assured that if there is a full-out nuclear war, we won't even be around to have to even think about how we're going to try to survive the fallout and all that. It's just game over for us. For people who live out in rural areas away, again, they may not get hit directly, but they most certainly will suffer from radiation poisoning and die a slow death, as what will happen overseas. So this is serious business. In the news, the mainstream media, the propaganda channels, they're doing a really good job of really not going down and addressing this. But whether you know it or not, we are in a very, very dangerous situation. So let's say there's not a nuclear exchange. Let's just say that there's a conventional exchange of weapons. Now, Russia just did fire in a medium range missile into Ukraine without a nuclear payload, which demonstrated the power of that missile. They could not intercept it. We do not have the technology to intercept those missiles because they're traveling at about Mach 10. So even with a conventional payload, those missiles are very, very, very dangerous. So should Putin decide to use conventional warheads on those missiles, it still would cause catastrophic damage because, again, those missiles travel at about Mach 10, so they can't be shot down, and they usually have multiple warheads. So that means they could strike more than one target simultaneously. So, me personally, as a veteran, I've always kept my eye on the news, especially international news. And I realize that the everyday person, most Americans are not really caring about international news as long as it doesn't affect us. But I'm here to tell you that it could affect us. And if we were to be struck with one of these missiles with a conventional payload, um, it would cause wide you know, widespread damage across whatever areas are impacted, which would most likely be military and infrastructural type targets. You got to think of chess. What is tactically sound? And so, what Russia would want to do is hit our military industrial complex to weaken the ability for us to be able to make more weapons to send overseas. Uh, and again, we would be at the top of that target list for the reasons I mentioned before. So let's say that we are struck with a conventional payload and widespread damage is caused across the country and specifically in the Metro Detroit area. Now we're going to a grid down situation, and now we have to start figuring out how we're going to protect ourselves, protect our families, get food, get water, because if this happens, there will be a complete breakdown in all of the government systems that we take for granted. And what I'm talking about is I'm talking about police, I'm talking about first responders, hospitals. There will be no functioning government. And the reason why I know this is common sense. If I'm a police officer or a firefighter and this area gets hit, yeah, initially I'm going to do my job. I'm going to go out and help people. But what's going to be my number one focus? My number one focus is going to be my family. And so if I have to take care of my family, I can't be on the job. So you can see very quickly how this could decay into chaos, and we would all be left to our own devices to fend for ourselves. So keep that in mind. Keep your eye on the news, and don't just watch one channel like CNN. I'm a Fox guy, but I don't just listen to Fox. I listen to them all, even foreign, like French 24, I think is the French channel, the English channel, BBC America, and then even Russian TV, RT TV. I listen to all of them. Al Jazeera is another one, all the English speaking versions of those news channels, because now you're going to get a broad view of everything that's going on. If you listen just to American mainstream news, we're only going to get one angle. So whatever your news source is, just make sure it's diverse and it's not political leaning one way or the other, which they all have a little bit of a slant, which is why I also seek out foreign news services as well, because we're going to get the news from their perspective as well. So just, keep your eye on the news if there is any kind of civil unrest. And here's the other thing. Even if Russia doesn't strike America, the mainland, or CONUS as we call it in the military, but they strike U.S. assets outside of CONUS, or OCONUS as we call it in the military, whether that be a military base somewhere overseas or U.S. infrastructure, that still would require us to go to a heightened level of alert, meaning the DEFCON level would be increased, and so there would be a change in our security posture. The other problem with that is that other terrorists and people that really do want to do us harm might take advantage of that. And what I'm talking about is designated terrorist organizations, maybe other enemies of the state that have been maybe quiet for a long time, may seize on the opportunity. And don't forget, guys, we still have an open southern border that still has hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of military-age males who have crossed the border. Now, it may be coincidental that these military-age males just want to come over here and make a better life for themselves, but we have to look at the very real possibility that some of these guys are sleeper agents being sent into the country and set themselves up to be prepared to strike if uh, they're given the command or whatever the signal for them to strike would be, or maybe on their own, again, just to take advantage of the situation. So make sure you pay attention to your surroundings. You should always be carrying your firearm everywhere that you are legally allowed to. Make sure that your loved ones are doing the same. The other thing you want to have is make sure you have a bug out bag. Make sure you have a bag that's got the essentials in it for each member of your household. And then the other thing you want to have is a rally point, or a place, a pre-designated place that you and your family members have picked to meet at in case that there's a large scale event. And it doesn't have to be a wartime event. It could be a disaster. It could be a natural disaster like a flood or a hurricane or something like, or a hurricane, a tornado or something like that. It could be a large scale power outage. Whatever the event is, you should already have a plan to where you and your family members will meet if you're not all at home when something happens, and then a plan on how to get to that location, and then what you're going to do from there. All right, guys, this is Big Cobb Diesel, just putting it out there for you guys to keep your eyes and ears open, pay attention to international news, and always, always, always pay attention to your surroundings. All right, everybody, stay safe. Talk soon.